Hi, good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, awesome. So I think we have a full house here today. There's quite a number of participants who have registered for this particular webinar series. And I also have some very well-known and eminent panelists who are joining this discussion. So I also have a couple of people helping me, supporting me, Mr. Gaganjeet and Deepa Mahajan. A lot of you probably know Deepa very well. Can we get started?
Yes. Hi, Sadiq.
So should we get started, Deepa?
Yes.
Okay, great, awesome. All right, thank you and good evening. I really appreciate and welcome all of you who have joined this particular webinar. The webinar really is about what is happening today post-COVID. I mean, with the kind of challenges that the global and the Indian economy is facing, especially related to the MSMEs and the SMBs, which is the small and medium businesses. And we will go through the session, before the introduction. I just want to lay out the agenda. So what we'll talk really about is after COVID, what's happening? Growth, recession, what is it? And what are the governments doing to handle this situation with an India focus? We then talk a bit about the challenges faced by the MSMEs. As I say it, when survival necessity is in front of you, or turbulence is in front of you, there's a lot of triggers for transformation. And what are some of the MSMEs doing today in this current times? We'll also talk a bit about government interventions that can be leveraged by the MSMEs. I think we'll have a couple of panelists talk about that. And for people who are going to be able to attend and stick till the end, I will personally talk a bit about what are the changes and how are the personal investment and savings being redefined? What are the things that we need to do in the current next decade as we get along? And I think that would probably, we'll leave it at that. We'll take the Q&A as it comes along, with each of these sections. And, so getting started, basically,
You're on mute, Rajesh.
yeah, sorry, I got muted by somebody. I'm sorry about that. So let me introduce the panel to you. The panel consists of Subrat Pani. He is an entrepreneur, a coach, and he co-founded a company called OneAssist, which is into support and services for the gadgets you use, especially in terms of financial warranties and guarantees, etc. Subrat basically has a banking background. He's an ex-banker, and he actually has been at the helm of OneAssist, and he will tell us a bit about the challenges he's facing and how he's been able to face them. Subrat, if you could just raise your hands.
Hi.
Yeah, Subrat and everybody else, when we start the questions, maybe you can add a few things if you want to when you start the conversation. The next person I want to introduce is Pradipto Chatterjee. Pradipto is a consultant and founder of Icon Consultancy, which specializes in MSME, organizational development, and growth consulting. Pradipto founded this organization in 1997. And he coaches MSME businesses to, move to the next level. And really at this juncture, I think how to survive and then look onwards for growth. He has extensive experience in organizational development and strategic planning. Moving on, I have Hardeep Singh. Hardeep, if you could just wave to everybody. Okay. Hardeep actually heads multiple businesses in small businesses in the manufacturing, logistics, and retail side. The company is called Utkal Metallics, and he is a metallurgist by profession and has a lot of experience in the steel and trucking sectors. And he's a philanthropist and was a past district governor of the Lions Club International District 322. The next person I have in the panel is Sudhir Samal. Sudhir, if you could just raise your hand, please. Yes. Sudhir heads and is the CEO for UB International Trading Group. And Sudhir has been involved in manufacturing and exports, especially in the leather and apparel industries for the last 20 years. He's currently an executive committee member of the South Indian Shoe Manufacturing Association. And to round it up, myself, my name is Rajesh Kumar. I run a boutique consulting called Sequity Advisors. I do a lot of work in the portfolio investment management space, especially as related to US markets. I basically manage high growth investment and asset allocation strategies and platforms for clients investing in the US markets, which has been generating about 25% year over year for the last decade. I also advise and mentor a lot of startups in the APAC region to help them scale strategically and raise funds. And I also do a lot of blogging and articles on Seeking Alpha. You can look me up there. With that, let me just get started. And my initial thoughts before we get started with the panel, if you look at what's happened in the last 3 to 4 months, we've had economies literally tumble with what we call a black swan event. In fact, I call it probably a pink or a yellow swan, because at least a black swan you have seen, you know something about it. But here, you just have been, got into the face of something unknown. The economies, the global economies have been using multiple approaches, be it in terms of the health and upkeep, or in terms of stimulus, for instance, the US has spent about, I think, $7 trillion US dollars. Germany has spent about $1.5 trillion. Developed countries have been spending about 5 to 10% of their GDP as stimulus to see if they can manage what is happening. India has announced a $25 billion US dollar stimulus, which is approximately about 10% of our GDP. And how we are spending it, we'll talk a bit about that. But a lot of it is to support and subordinate for MSMEs, cottage industries, the working class, and the industry in general. As I go about it, we'll talk a bit about what else is happening. But if you really look at the number of MSMEs today in the country, we have approximately 6.3 crore MSMEs, and they employ about 15 crore people. The MSMEs, I don't know, how many of you knew about it, but they contribute about 49% of India's exports, nearly half of the total exports. And they contribute about 31% of the GDP for India. Now, India's exports suddenly has dipped by 60%. Employment level is down by 50%. And the government of India has actually started intervening and provided about 1.25 lakh crores in MSME support. They have also identified about 12 sectors of growth as we move along. Some of it like auto components, leather and footwear, textile, industrial machinery, food processing, etc., etc. So let me, with this context in mind, start with my first question to Subrat. Subrat, economies are using stimulus to combat the COVID impact. How is India facing these challenges? And what is your perspective in terms of what else can be done to help the MSMEs and startups in particular? And what are the challenges you have been facing, particularly with your startup, in terms of the current setup?
Hey, thanks, Rajesh. I think
Many queries.
I think as entrepreneurs are always, I think we have to fight the battle ourselves. being at the helm of stuff. So I think what's happening in India, I think as a true entrepreneur, all of us are putting our best foot forward, trying to, it's like the whole theme is that die another day. I think if I have to start the note, that has been the thought process. So how can you survive today, see tomorrow? Coming back to One Assist, I think our journey and how we are navigating through, I think it'll be good for me to share some of the things that has worked for us. So I think first, if Deepak, we can maybe go to the first slide. So if you look at it, I realize from my personal experience, I can tell you that the first thing which is most difficult is accepting the reality in terms of, and then that's what I said. It's meant, imagine ourselves like we are around 8.5-year-old organization, and last 2 years we have been growing at CAGR of 44%, subscriber base growing at that speed. And March 2020, we set a big goal for ourselves. So we are dreaming. I mean, we are talking about how do I become a 5 million subscriber company? How do I double my revenue by 2020? So imagine here is what we were on March 6th or 7th, and then we are on March 24th, and then COVID strikes. So I think the biggest, how quickly, how do you adapt to this? How do you accept this? That's, I think, is the first thing that looked like a biggest challenge. I think today in looking back, I feel it was really good on us so that we have internalized that our world has changed forever. I mean, it's about things are really, COVID has changed everything, not only for now, it's really going to change a lot of things forever. So I think that is a great realization. What it did for us is that it gave us extreme conviction, clarity, and it said that it's really an action time. And I think that's what a startup has gone through. So, you know, all of you, even the other entrepreneurs and startups, you're at various stages. Somebody is at, you know, kind of POC stage, somebody is at MVP stage, somebody is growing customers, somebody is looking at massive scale up and revenue and profits. But what we realized, all these KPIs had really gone out of the window. So what looked like the only KPI was that the survival, and survival means cash. So the whole task at One Assist was moved on to how do I conserve cash? How do I create a runway for the organization to see another 24 months? So I think that was the first goal we had to take, that 24 months runway is the first project that we had to work on. And that meant taking a lot of aspects of operating expenses, business model and everything. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that. So we started with that exercise. And here is one of the slides that you can see here is talking about, this is Sequoia had shared this framework, and I think I thought it could be relevant for some of you. It's very handy. And why I like this framework is that it tells you two things very loudly. You know, one, macro scenarios are beyond our control. How can we focus on what is in our control? And the second thing that it's telling us very clearly is the cash we burn every month is the only thing that an entrepreneur or a founder or an enterprise owner is controlling. And how do you work on that in extending? So that's the exercise we went into. And lockdown is really hard. Deepa, we can move to the second slide. Like some of you have gone through that, when suddenly you are running at certain revenues and you realize that your revenues are down to zero. I mean, every lockdown was like that. So you are back down to zilch. And that could be very scary. It can numb you, and then you can't take decisions. So we really feel good that we did all of these. By 28th March, we had implemented whatever we need to take this forward. Here I'm talking about, in this slide, I'm sharing my experiences in terms of how did we at One Assist go about maximizing this runway? How do I have enough cash to run it for the next 2 years? So I think we really, I mean, logically, all of you would have dug deeper into technology, overheads, marketing, other expenses. But we also realized that, you know, we need to ask ourselves, what is really essential for survival? And what is the bare minimum needed to survive one more month? So that was the question we asked. And then we said, what can wait for a few months and quarter? If I don't need it today, can it wait for me? And the third anchor point was about what is it that we can let go now and stop it or get out of it and maybe rebuild it if needed later. So based on this guiding principle, we basically looked into shutting down few things, eliminate a lot of the processes and activities, and really ramp down a lot of our channels. And imagine we renegotiated every possible contract, even if whether it's a rental contract or whether it's a software license or whether it's a vendor or a service provider contract or whether it's a payroll services, smallest of things, or even the work from home by our BPO partners. So we literally renegotiated, relooked everything, every aspect of it, every rupee around that. And hey, finally, all that led to, like you can see in this slide, there are two blocks. One is the SG&A, and that's what we look into as our fixed overheads. And that's where we did all this work. And then finally, still we could reach a level saying, okay, we could bring it down by 25%. So we could do 25% cut on our SG&A, and that was not enough. And then we had to look into the upper side. That's about what are the other business expenses. So I think this is an important one for the startups and early stage companies, because when we look at our burn, we are looking at our fixed cost. But there are a lot of other costs which is supporting your revenue and which is really hidden, and we need to really let go of that. So if you see the slide here on the right hand, on the top right hand corner, so those were our channels, those are programs, and those are partners. We really had to cut it down. I mean, one business which was contributing 18% of our revenue, we really brought it down to 10% in terms of investment and then in terms of the channel infrastructure and the cost. So those are really hard times. But, and again, on the same spirit, you will see on program 3, that's something that we really ramped up and invested more to get more revenues, because we knew that's the business which is going to climb up faster. And that was all the digital and the e-commerce business on which we were riding on. So I think these were extremely tough. And just to share with you, with all these exercises, we landed up with a 34% reduction in our operating expenses, so which was unimaginable at the beginning of this. And just to summarize this slide, so from my personal experience, I think extreme clarity and conviction and acceptance that this is here around and it's going to stay and it's going to change our world forever. That is a great starting point. So the few learnings out here, I think for me and for my team was that, and my co-founder and my partner, money saved today has a far more differential than money saved tomorrow. I think if you would have not done those things on 28th March, and if you would have done those on 28th April, it would have meant a lot more stuff. And maybe you would have burnt 4 or 5 months of cash in those 30 days. So I think that was really something which really helped. And right now also you need to approach your business like that. Hope is not a strategy. You have to take those calls. If you're planning to do something 30 days from now, do it now. That was a big learning we all took home, and I think they're going to stay with us forever. Second,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I just have a question for you. So you were talking about some hard decisions, Wade. So can you tell us a bit about this, like what made you cut investments on a channel where you were generating revenue? I mean, and what did you do with that, and why did you do that? I mean, these could be aspects that, the listeners would want to know, because yes, I mean, these are hard decisions. We all make it at home, but maybe from a business perspective, it would be interesting to hear that.
No, I think great question. So I think this was a tough one, because in a meeting room, if you have 7, 8 leadership team members, everybody will have their own views. So we said, hey, things are hazy. We can't see the future. So let's put some basic first principles rather than trying to predict what's going to happen. So the thought here, especially the channel one, what I'm referring to as an illustration here, was that we looked into 2 things. What can give us revenue for next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? What can generate cash for the company? What business, what product, what program? The second variable that we looked into, that what is the cost to income ratio? What I mean by that, if you spend to generate 1 rupee of revenue, how much money you have to spend? So do you have to spend 50 paisa to generate 1 rupee of revenue? Or can you generate 1 rupee of revenue by spending 25 paisa? So I think automatically from this, based on these two principles, you will be able to figure out that what we scaled down was large turnover, large contributor, but the cost to income ratios of some of the other programs and products were far higher. And second, because of the lockdown, we didn't know when will this open up and start contributing. So we can't hope that we'll review and do it next month. So Rajesh, this really helped us to take that decision.
Awesome.
Subrat.
Awesome. Great.
Subrat,
Yeah.
one clarification. When you thought of cost to income, did you focus on cash only or both?
Now, yeah, I think it's a great question. I think at this point of time, cash really comes first. So there was a consideration, what are the kind of payouts? We have a higher credit cycle. What is the working capital required for some of the channels in business? Do I have to pay upfront? Great question, Pradipta. So we took a combination of that. But few things, when you start putting those on the table, decisions stand on their own. I mean, they really kind of stay.
Yeah, agree
Yes.
Agree to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Good questions, guys. Keep them coming. Deepa, ma'am, if there are any questions relevant to this area, you can pass it on to me, and we can have them, answered as and when
we go along, right?
Right.
We have got a question out here in the chat box, but I was just thinking, should we take them maybe a little towards the end of the conversation, or Rajesh, how do you want to do that? Should we be doing it?
I think if it is something relevant to your next topics or whatever you have in mind.
Yeah, I think, okay, it's a quick one. I'll take it. Question is, how do you manage customer expectations and employee expectations while cutting down cost? I think you are in business because of your customers. So I think what you need to see, like for example, in our business, we measure the customer expectations in terms of the NPS, Net Promoter Score. So the decision for was that, okay, if I cut down this expense, my NPS will come down from 65 to 40, or will it come down from 65 to 10 or 65 to negative? So I think these are tough ones, but to answer your question, customer expectations are very important, because if you do all this and when the COVID is gone and the demand is there, the customer is not going to come back to you. So I think that really definitely is the highest priority. We looked into that. We said, fine, NPS of 65 can go to 50 or 45, but not to 10 or 12 or minus 40 or minus 50. So that was the consideration. As far as employees are concerned, I think you'll be surprised. We did our first town hall on 29th March, and we spoke about all the cut and all. But I think if people understand why we are doing what we are doing, that the path is a little easier. So it's a lot about dialogue and communication and putting things up front and being transparent with everybody in the team.
Okay, great. Awesome, Subrat. I think somebody asked a question around, can you hear me?
Yes.
You all hear me? So somebody asked a question around, how do you explain this chart? Maybe, let me paraphrase and summarize it. So Subrat, I think if, I will kind of mirror the understanding everybody has gotten in the audience. So whoever, Mr. Bharat, I think he asked a question. So if you look at it, what Subrat was talking about was, at home when we are, cost cutting, what do? We switch off the unnecessary lights and fans, right? We cut down on, the cakes and the pastries, the same thing that he did in his business. He looked at the wages. He looked at all the cost, which is actually under SG&A, which is sales, general and administration. And he said, okay, for me to survive, I have to survive for 3 months. After that, I will see what works at that time. For now, for me to survive for the 3 months, what are the hard decisions I make? And that is where you see the cost cutting. That is the blue is their current expenses, and the yellow or the brown is the news expenses. So they've cut down in cases of wages by 50%. Whereas if you look at the other side on the top, on the acquisition cost, there they are looking at gross margins, which is basically how much is the margins you're getting on each channel. That is, for 1 rupee, if I spend, can I get 2 rupees or can I get 3? And based on that, they decide which channel will get that 1 rupee from their pocket. I hope I addressed that question.
Yes.
Subrat, do you think I got it right?
No, perfect. Thanks, Rajesh. Just to add that, typically startups look into SG&A. They don't look into the hidden cost that goes above the contribution margin. So I think that's how you calculate your P&L and unit economics. For startups, it's very important to go above and see all the acquisition costs that goes. So that is the line above. Those are the critical ones, and a lot of rupee is lying there. So
Okay.
Rajesh, very well articulated and summarized. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Great. So let me bring in another guest on our panel, and I think he had a funny story about how during COVID even the robbers were taking a break, and I think he will narrate it from his own mouth. So Hardeep, if you could tell us a bit about some of the challenges you faced as a small and medium business owner, especially in the core sectors of manufacturing and logistics.
Yeah, we have a manufacturing small facility in Rourkela and a crumb rubber manufacturing facility in Kharagpur. We are also into logistics and transporting. So 24th March, when our Honorable PM declared nationwide lockdown, movement of citizens and vehicles, including bus and railways, got restricted. So there was a lot of chaos. We had immediately to shut down our facilities at Rourkela and Kharagpur. Transport fleet somehow managed to reach the destinations, or few were back to the garage. Everyone, management and workers, were in a panic. So guidelines came after a couple of days that continuous operating plants and transport can resume, but with certain restrictions like 35% manpower and social distancing, etc. So it was very difficult. Our facilities were opened after 10 days, but production and the fleet movement could not really start. Manpower drivers were not available. Most of them had gone back to their native places. And it was a very big fear. Actually, we were not able to go to our units. Units were left to the security guards, and it was really a big fear that the thieves and robbers can get into the unit. But thanks the fear of COVID, which was equal to the robbers also, they didn't also dare to come out of their houses and climb into our boundaries and take away our things. So finally, we could start our operations after 37 days. And by the time, we had already incurred huge amount of losses due to non-operation of facilities. More challenges were yet to come. We had obligations to pay labor payment, electricity bills, bank interest, and GST for the month of March and April. We had stock of raw materials for the next 3 months piled up with outstanding payments to the suppliers. We had pending purchase orders for procurement of raw material finalized before announcement of the lockdown, and we had to honor all our commitments. We now needed huge funds to fulfill our requirements. The incoming funds against receivables also got held up because of from the clients. Now, then came the support from the government. COVID-19 support scheme with extra 10% of our bank cash credit limit came as a big support to meet immediate payment of labor's electricity and GST. Our manpower also volunteered for a 25% cut in April salary. That was quite a big relief. 3 months moratorium on bank loans, EMI, 3 months relaxation on the road taxes came as an immediate relief further. And then we made extra efforts to realize our receivables vis-a-vis received unsecured loans from parties to immediately fulfill our requirements of fund. Now we are presently running our facilities making loss due to high cost of raw material and low selling price of finished products, which has declined due to decrease in product demand, non-operation of a client's plants, breakup of the supply chain, shortage of labor, and lacks of fund, etc. The logistics and transport demand is less, and we are losing of our capital. Government has announced emergency credit line, guaranteed credit line at lower rate of interest through bank, 20% on outstanding loans as on 29th Feb, with no collateral securities or guarantees will be provided. We applied for it and waiting for the same and for the approval. And that was a very big challenge for us. Somehow we could come across, and still we are struggling, how to keep our cash flows and all those things okay.
So I can still see the stress levels on your face, Hardeep, but out of all these challenges, what do you think was really keeping you up in the night?
Yeah, pardon, sorry, I couldn't get it because again the net got disturbed.
I was asking you, what out of all these challenges you were facing, what was it that was the most prominent for you?
Yeah, the two things were the basically most prominent. One was the workforce. Most of our employees and workers, they are from the neighboring states who had, at the moment this lockdown was declared, somehow they could manage to go back to their states. Now, it was a very big challenge getting, since it's infrastructure, steel, manufacturing, logistics, that's completely based on manpower. So it was really very difficult to bring them back. And, at the beginning, government had told to start the operations with 35% manpower and with social distancing. So that was literally impossible, if you need just to manage the manufacturing industry with 35% manpower, which is of a continuous operation type. So it was really very difficult how to, arrange all those people. And then secondly, equally, the funds.
Okay, I think we have some infrastructure bottlenecks. So I'll
borrowed monies from others also.
We'll come back to Hardeep later on. Hardeep, I think we are having some issues hearing you. So I'm going to move on to my next question.
I think I'm back now. I think am I back now?
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, I don't know where I left like.
Okay, no problem. We'll come back to you. So my next question actually will go to
Rajesh, one small clarification from Hardeep. Hardeep, you just now said that you are making losses but still continuing production. What's the reason behind doing so? Does not make
Yeah, because like our type of continuous operation plants with such a big manpower, we have to operate the plant that will land into bigger losses because the fixed infrastructure is already fixed. We have to pay for the salaries of the labor, we have to pay for electricity, and lot of fixed expenses are there. If we don't run, we run into bigger losses.
Okay, so you're basically reducing losses by running it, you mean?
Yeah, in fact, we are trying to run our unit in 100% capacity so that we can average down the fixed cost of production.
What about the output? Where does it go?
Output, we are again trying. We have to we are taking certain measures. You are trying to push the sales. We are trying to sell the product in cash with some discounts, and otherwise also still with the existing manpower, we are hardly able to produce around 60 to 65%. We're still not able to achieve 100% capacity right now.
Okay, so you are trying to sell aggressively. That's what I get. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Hardeep. And so let me move on to Sudhir Samal. Sudhir probably faces a different set of challenges because he actually partners with a lot of small and medium scale businesses, and he probably has seen a different set of challenges. So Sudhir, if you can narrate to us in terms of operational and revenue challenges or cash flow challenges, what were some of the things that you saw on the ground? Considering that you were in UB, you probably could see it from the other side. I'm assuming that UB could probably buffer a lot more than some of your partners.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rajesh, distinguished panel members, organizers, and audience, giving me an opportunity to be a part of this webinar. We run manufacturing and exports, which form part of MSME. We are one of the best 5,000 MSME in India. During first week of February, there was a widespread panic about the outbreak of COVID in China. The customers sounded us to increase the capacity to compensate their capacity loss in China. Therefore, we geared up to increase our capacity in terms of machinery, manpower, raw material, logistics. Suddenly, in one day, the corona outbreak spread to Europe, Italy becoming epicenter. The Europe stopped accepting exports from India. The containers were standing in a queue for 75 kilometer stretch in toll gates of Germany, France, Italy, Spain. India lost almost 25% of export orders in last 2 weeks of March and 40% of export orders in first 2 weeks of April and the rest 35% orders were on hold. Everyone in industry started hearing Corona from all directions. Until then, all were busy in closing the financial year of 1920 and budgeting for the next financial year. With cancellation of orders, the fear of uncertainty spread into Indian exporters' mind. At that point of time, India was not ready to accept this bad news. Everyone started talking about the loss of revenue. See, the loss of revenue has caused numerous direct and indirect losses, such as job loss, non-payment to the vendors, loss due to the foreign exchange covers, loss due to the non-realization of the advance paid to importers. Not possible to manufacture, not possible to maintaining the cash flow, not possible to meet the loan repayment commitment to the banks. Most important, settling workers and staffs who are not required immediately. So summarizing all this, the situation resulted into operational and revenue loss challenges, compliance challenges, cash flow challenges, sustainability challenges, and unpredictable future challenges. During April, when all were locked inside the house, the industry think tanks were working from the house. We, as an industry association body, had many video conferencing calls, started writing representation to Government of India, state ministers, DGFT, local collectors, CII of local chapters, FICCI, FIO, ASSOCHAM, statutory authorities, requesting everyone for early opening of the factories, release of blocked funds, offering immediate financial supports. Otherwise, 22 crore of people will be in the road in the first week of May when the factory opens. However,
so looks like a lot of the challenges I'm hearing. Again, even Hardeep had a lot of these challenges. So, I mean, you know, if I had to summarize from your perspective, some of the challenges that were very different for you compared to what a Hardeep faced or compared to what a Subrata faced, what will those two challenges be?
Yes, we were having one challenges about the operational challenges. Second is the financial challenges. Let me explain. The operational challenges, like we have to focus on our quality, because no one will look at you if you don't look into don't you maintain the quality. There are efficiency use of the capacity, otherwise the cost will overrun. There will be surplus manpower, how are you going to handle? There will be ideal capacity, ideal machineries, shortage of skilled resources, then excess inventory, the inventory cost will go up. Then what about the finished goods? Because who will take the finished goods of value is much more higher. Then we came to the financial challenges. Those are cash flow challenges. I think Deepa can take into the one slide. There will be cash flow challenges like to renegotiate. Deepa, please. There will be various cash flow challenges. You know, to renegotiate with all vendors to revise the credit terms, increase their credit period, even if it works to increase the price by a few cents, still work. We requested all vendors to reschedule deliveries, get what is needed in 3 weeks only, not to park the stock for a month. We pursue the bad debts and pending collections. We convince all senior management staff, if company can defer 25% of their salary for the next 6 months and pay later with interest. We met the banks and requested them for the term loan and revised the guidelines by Government of India. We met the banks for bill discounting. We ensured that there is a balance between sales and expenditure. We focused on the cash liquidity instead of fixed deposits, unless otherwise. We controlled all variables like expenses, employee benefits, advances. We requested bank to extend EMIs. We created a task force to get updates on new financial packages declared by government, because most of the MSE owners, they are MSME industry, they are not aware of whatever the government guidelines. Then we focused on the GST money, which we can hold back to suppliers because government has extended the GST. So overall, after started looking into deeply into these financial facilities that can be available from the Government of India, then we later went into the other financial funding.
Okay, great, awesome. Awesome, thank you, Sudhir. So my next question actually is going to be to Pradipta then. Pradipta, you heard about a lot of challenges, you heard a lot of
yes.
Negotiation going back and forth. from the opposite side, as a consultant, and you probably are seeing the forest, whereas all these owners are seeing the trees. From a forest perspective, if you can just summarize for us what you think has helped some of these MSMEs, and I'm pretty sure in the webinar we have a lot of people who may want to get your viewpoint on what could help them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rajesh. Deepa, could you forward a few slides, please? Yeah, this is the one. See, you have, I think the audience have already heard the kind of challenges our entrepreneur friends have been facing. And in my network of clients and the friends that I have in business, the challenges are pretty much same from different kinds of businesses. Yes, there were certain businesses where I saw there was a boom in sales, healthcare, security, housekeeping. These were the areas where we had sudden spurt in revenue also, or potential revenue. Now, I saw that the ones that actually got over the problem after the initial shock of, let's say, a week or so, people started accepting the reality, which one of us here actually shared. The mindset change, the change in outlook was the starting point in all the kinds of businesses that I've seen. So people realize that, yeah, we cannot wait any further. We'll have to take certain steps to get out of the mess, because we do not know anymore that when it is going to get over. So with that realization, they started rethinking, reinventing their businesses. So some of them actually switched products, like a t-shirt manufacturer starts making PE. Somebody who was in non-woven carry bag manufacturing rejigged his manufacturing and started producing masks. And when I asked these people, I came to know because there were certain interventions for which I was contacted. So when I asked them later, how's the business doing? I get a prompt response, good, which is so rare in current times. And then there was a hotel. We all know that hotels were doing very badly. No sales. So of late, they are still in talks with a corporate. That's a good hotel, a 3-star hotel. Going to talks with a corporate, they are trying to offer the entire property on lease to a big corporate. And the corporate, on the other hand, they never had such an offer. So they are now thinking of actually considering it for a training facility. So look at this corporate who never thought that a training facility can probably be run by a third party, a hotel. And the hotel never thought of actually collaborating with a business for giving them something which they were never ready. They have an entire infrastructure ready. But now this is a reality where both parties are trying to work out a collaboration, which is a win-win solution for both. So business model, products, the entire new businesses, business ideas came up. Then the next thing that I saw most entrepreneurs do is that they did not, the first step that they took was look internally. How can we conserve cash? Subrat here also mentioned and focused on that. Cash is king. Profits were not into consideration anymore. So cash was the only consideration. So they thought of reducing inventory in whatever form that was. No more buying inventory to stock up inventory for reduced prices, and get as much material as possible out of the door, as Hardeep said a little while ago. So sell differently as much as possible, even offer discounts if possible, and collect receivables. So it was very simple that everybody worked on extracting cash out of the system as much as possible. And they also kept close vigil on how things were going. How more months can we survive with the cash that we are getting out of the system? The last thing on their agenda was look for the COVID-19 emergency fund, was quick. So that actually helped many of the businesses I have seen with that plus 10% of working capital. So that was handy. But even after getting the limits, I don't think all of them have really used it up immediately. So some of them had to, but not all of them. So the consideration for loans was the last. So they definitely thought of it, but that was the last when they saw that the cash flow still was not enough to support operations to the extent required. So would you go to the next slide, please, Deepa? Yeah, so these are some of the potential schemes that were being considered, and the options that you see up here. I would point at two things here. The PSB loan in 59 minutes is something which is very interesting, and the TREDS, TREDS, Trade Receivables Electronic Discounting System. These are the two options which actually drew my attention, and during this lockdown phase only, I came to know much more about these two opportunities. And I discovered that most of my MSME clients and even the CA friends were very much unaware about these trade receivable electronic discounting mechanism. So this is something I would advise all entrepreneurs to really consider, because this unlocks your money that is stuck in the invoices, the unpaid invoices. This is basically a bill discounting with some special features for MSME suppliers. So here you actually, in a normal bill discounting, the credit worthiness of the MSME supplier as well as the buyer, both are considered. And once you receive the money, the onus is still on the supplier to collect the bill when the time is due and then return it to the financier. But this is not so here in TREDS. Once you get the money, it's not your baby anymore. And so the delay or the default by the buyer does not come back to you as a liability. So
I'm sure. I think all our,
this is something which is very special. Among the rest, I think most of us are actually aware. And if you still need to know more about these schemes and all, there is a new website, champions.gov.in, which can actually help you all to find out the exact thing for which you can apply and approach the departments. So that's it for in short, which I found pretty relevant, and from my observation, the MSMEs have done during these days. Over back to you.
Okay,
Rajesh.
okay, Pradipta. I think if you could actually kind of summarize for them, what are some of the options available? I think you talked about it briefly, but I mean, I think if you could just kind of summarize for them, like for instance, I think you talked about some GECL loans, and you talked about some working capital loans and stuff. If you could summarize that, because I think we have some time challenges. I think I'd like to probably wrap up after this. Yeah.
See, it's pretty. I'm sure the entrepreneurs who are running their businesses are aware that term loan and working capital loans are the two aspects that they are really concerned about. So currently, mostly we are fighting for survival, but still there are certain companies where they are considering technology upgradation to, if they have lost manpower, can they run the process without those manpower even coming back? So rethinking their businesses and improving processes and automating the processes are also being considered. In those cases, technology upgradation capital can also be sought from these credit guarantee schemes, which are funded by the central government, and the implementation is also on the central government, which are faster. So in the schemes that you find, you can go to Development Commissioner MSME website, DC MSME, and there you would find all kinds of schemes listed. And broadly, there are two kinds of schemes. One type of scheme which is implemented by the central government through the central government's mechanism. And then there is one more type which is implemented through the state government. Now the ones that are through the state government, there you will have to approach the district industry center. You might actually like to go through the MSME Development Institute, but ultimately it's an application which is to be made to the bank, and through the district industry center, you will find the way forward to get a sanction. Right. So when you read the description of the scheme, you will identify whether this is a state government scheme or a central government scheme.
And I'm guessing each has a different approach and a process, is it?
And if you need a, as I said, the public sector bank loan in 59 minutes is something very unique, which happens online. So one can actually share the GST number and the PAN numbers, and the as it is claimed, the loan can get approved. This is a business loan as well as a personal loan. Both are possible. So you get it approved in 59 minutes officially. I do not know whether it takes 60 or 58. And you get the money in about 7-8 days time. So that's the speed expected from that route. So this is something, and if you can actually manage your invoices going forward and get the money in time through PREDS, right now everything has got some challenges, right? But you can get registered on those platforms. These are standard, very standard RBI approved or even government platforms, very much like the stock exchange. So can be really dependent on and can help all MSME suppliers.
So Pradipta, in the interest of time, I'm probably going to, wrap this up. But I think there was a question around discounting, and looks like that question has been answered. Let me ask you, and only if it's drastically different, I would like you to spend time on it. How
Absolutely.
Receivables, if customer is not able to pay, is there any provision by the bank or government? And I think that's what you just answered on that trades thing, correct?
Correct. So, but trades has a limitation is that if you have a large company who is, but the trades requires that both buyer and the seller both are to be registered on that particular platform. But 500 crores and above parties are mandatorily required to be registered now on trades. And that includes, plus the CPSEs, PSEs, and the government departments are also supposed to be registered. So that's a regulation brought in by the government. The government e-marketplace now works with trades. So if you are supplying through GEM, your money will come through trades. So payment is assured. If it's a 45 days, you get within 45 days. So that's something going forward we should adopt, so that our money flow gets more standardized. And we can actually think of development.
Rajesh, I think there is one question for Hardeep, and it's a good, relevant one. There's a question, Hardeep, saying that, please tell me, what do you think about the main focus area for an entrepreneur at this time? Hardeep will take it. You're on mute. Oh, yeah,
I'll take it. See, the main focus again will be, how you optimize the things, how you manage your cash. That will, because the power today is with the cash you have in your hand. So that will be the main focus area. So, and I was just jotting down that like we had a lot of challenges during the COVID time, and what all benefits we got out of what all we learned during the COVID time. This is just out of the context, but just had stripped it down. So it was very interesting. Like during this time, we had a lot of internal trainings. We had trainings on webinar for our employees, and the one very good thing which happened was, we got into the culture of con calls. Earlier, we never used to be in con calls. So, this 1 month, we all my different various companies, we fixed for times, and this particular all executives at some companies and junior level executives all become such a great.
We are losing you again.
That is
Hardeep.
Yeah.
We are losing you again. Let me summarize that. Basically, today a doctor can see you online. Today you are going to school online. So, companies have, started working remotely, which means, there may be ramifications on the real estate. I think that's really what, Hardeep was talking about. And I think they've become more flexible in terms of opening their minds in terms of what they can do possibly remotely previously, which they never thought they could do. I think that's probably what Hardeep was trying to say. Is that correct, Hardeep? Because I think you're not audible.
Yes, exactly.
Audible.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Mr. Rajesh.
Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
No, you're cutting in and out. You're cutting in and out. And guys, I think we have another 10 minutes remaining.
Mr. Rajesh,
So
Mr. Rajesh.
Let me try to wrap up. Yes, Sudhir.
Yeah, Mr. Rajesh, I think someone asks that what are the important challenges or responsibility for an entrepreneur? To add to Hardeep, I can tell as an entrepreneur today
if you could just take 2 minutes and wrap it up, that'd be great.
I'd say you have to work in a cluster. You have to create the partners if you can't do it alone. Point number 2, you have to engage yourself with the institutions in a hub and a spoke model. Point number 3, you have to encourage innovations, continue for new ideas, new designs, and a new way of doing the things. Point number 4, you think for scalability, use technology, use the resources, use the relations. Point number 5, you maintain professionalism and work ethics, and you will be successful.
Thanks. I'll add a couple of things, guys. I mean, I myself have seen that a lot of businesses have pivoted. One of the companies which was totally into the retail sector, and I do a lot of advisory work for them, they pivoted and created a product for the post-COVID era. And that's how we were able to, kind of get them back. I'll probably try to kind of wrap up with a couple of questions. I mean, so Subrat, if you can quickly tell us, sum it up in terms of what now?
Yeah, okay. Deepa, can you go to that slide? I'll just, I think it's capturing a lot of stuff that has been already discussed. So this is a theme, it's a difficult one. Like what it means is that when the ship is going to sink, so you need to onboard onto a lifeboat to survive. So we really have to get rid of that mindset that I had a Titanic and it had so much kind of built. I had built over 20 years, 15 years, and hey, now it's breaking. So what do? I think there's no space for emotions and feelings, honestly, at this point of time. And in the last 90 days, all the people here must have gone through many of that. So I think it's really essentials only. So I think onboard onto a lifeboat. And one thought which I'm personally challenging myself every day, and it will really help. Let's assume your business starts doing very well next month. So how will you feel about it? Will you release all the stuff that you had done? All the automation, efficiency, productivity, all the fundamentals that you had renegotiated? So I think that's the mindset. It's a difficult one, but I'm asking myself, can I stay in forever lockdown mindset? That's about extreme frugality. It's about challenging everything that I don't need. If I don't need it today, I will not buy today. If I need tomorrow, I'll buy tomorrow. So that's the one thing which I think really, really help all entrepreneurs. Because see, this is still very, very unclear. The COVID is around. The peaking is still around. It's still not around. That's what. The second theme, I think, which Pradipta and Sudhir and Hardeep, everybody spoke about it, is that, see, we need something to ride on. So, right, I mean, there are some tailwinds. Not everything goes bad, right? Like Hardeep spoke about things which are looking good. So I think we have to identify, if there are 5 things which are going bad, there'll be 2 things which will be going good. So you literally have to latch on to the tailwinds, whatever tailwinds. Like, for example, in our business, we could see that the e-com business, like people are buying appliances, mobile phones on Amazon, Flipkart, and it opened prior to the offline retail stores. So I think all the effort and work we did with them in the last 60 days is really paying off now. So I think the recovery velocity, identifying the tailwinds and really latching onto it and riding that is really helping. And it's too early, but I think it's true for all of us. And third one, Pradipta really highlighted a lot about it. And Sudhir spoke about the cluster. I think just to elaborate that concept, this is not really the time to compete and all that stuff. It's really time to cooperate and survive. The good thing about the COVID, I personally feel, is that it has brought everybody to ground zero. So there is no competitive advantage. So everybody, it's a great leveler. So if you're operating with 10 competitors in a market, everybody is starting from zero. So I think the partnerships is really the core about it, but it needs a mindset change because we are very protective about our own business. So I think the whole concept of partnership, and as I lastly said, what we have, we need to leverage. Rather than trying to build new things, can we do enough with what we have? That is a technology, that's the team, that the trust and the customers that we have. So I think this is what we are operationalizing. And I'm sure a lot of themes came out from all of you. And Rajesh, that's the way it's panning out. And I think it's really helping in terms of a guiding force.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add one or two points to that, what Subrat said, that if you want to feel good about it, it's actually not two things good and 5 things bad. See, as we all know that 5% of GDP has been lost forever from our economy. But if we consider we have about 203 lakh crore of GDP and 5% is gone, it means about 190 lakh crore is still there, right? How many zeros are there? 13 zeros. How many do we need for our own families and the ones that are dependent on us? Much smaller. Yeah, you might have to look a little differently, but that's it. And with that, I would also request Rajesh to please touch upon the personal finances angle, because we have been talking about businesses and we are supposed to be talking about personal finance issues also. So please share the perspective from your end. And then
sure, I'll do that. Deepa, I think we had created a slide for everybody. I think, can you go back to the previous slide, Deepa? Yeah, the previous slide. Yes, I think this is a slide I think we had summarized for everybody so that if anybody wants to take a snapshot of all the things around, you can take a snapshot, because obviously I think there was a lot of information which was passed out, but this kind of summarizes what are the benefits you may be able to get across from different government agencies and departments, etc. Right. Moving on now, basically, if I look at from a personal finance perspective, yes, there is a lot of things which have changed, guys. I mean, a lot of economies are looking inward, which means the global ecosystem is probably going to change. And with China's expansionary tendencies today, I think, especially in India, I think people are going to pay a bit more as long as it supports a cause and it's sustainable. One of the things that I think I definitely want to talk about is that I think what's happened is today, I can actually be sitting in a remote city and working as a doctor or as an IT professional. The only thing where I think things will still not change is the actual production shop floor, where you need to be there physically, even though robots are, automating that slowly, right? So I think, there's definitely this moment towards virtualization, which would actually act as a stimulus for smaller cities and reduce the urban sprawl. And what's going to happen is there'll be a lot of remote changes in terms of real estate, in terms of remote healthcare, the whole way entertainment education is being going to be, opted out going forward. And, how technology can play as an enabler into a lot of things. Can you go to the next slide, please, Deepa? So there's a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs, in the way, today the global ecosystem works. There is definitely a lot of stuff focus around Atmanirbhar program. And I think, whether it's capital goods, whether it's consumer goods, where there is an opportunity, I think entrepreneurs should take a look at that, because definitely you will get a lot of support. Granted, there may be some gaps on the support, but I think, it's about sticking to that and then continuing with it, because you will eventually succeed. And I think, given the space we are getting in India because of China, I think it's a great opportunity. I'm also seeing a lot of investors, looking at safe havens, whether it's gold, whether it's, US markets, and, people are trying to save things, in terms of until stability is achieved. Going forward, what I look at is, I think I definitely feel that real estate may be in a bit of turbulence in terms of, these are my own thoughts, the way forward. Real estate definitely, I don't see what's the clarity in terms of real estate as an investment. If you look at the past, my gut feel is that, mutual funds have given tepid returns. Very few mutual funds have given more than 10%, but the stock markets have given pretty decent returns. Now, the anomaly with the Indian stock market is that the Indian stock market, actually the large caps have given you 14.2% compared to the mid and small caps, which have given you lower. But if you look at it globally, typically it's the mid caps which give you a much higher return. And that, when you get every 2% of increase in return, your compounding works, magically. You can get over a 10-year period, 25% more returns. That is 1 lakh will turn into 5 lakhs instead of 4 in 10 years. You have that 2 percentage points. Of course, I actually come across a lot of people who want to invest into the US markets. And I focus on the US markets. And I've seen a lot of companies like Vested Finance who are actually starting to look at that market, because one, it's a diversification, and one, it's a currency hedge. And given that the US markets have given much better returns, a lot of people want to go there. And it's possible today from India to invest in the US markets. There's a lot of facilities available. Can you hit the next slide, please? Deepa? Yes. To wrap up, I think from an investment perspective, you need to stick to your long-term plan. I mean, whatever be your plan, and always be ready for the worst. And I will advise that if you are going to go into the stock markets or into mutual funds, you only go into that if you don't need cash in the next 3 to 5 years. And, my magic on investing, because, I work with, a very high growth strategy in terms of investing. I personally feel that, if you want to invest in the stock markets, you want to look at mid cap stocks. You want to look at stocks which actually will give you good returns. And I call it the S curve investing. And if you look at this picture, what you will see is you got to identify opportunities where you're able to spot a trend, and you are able to capture that hockey stick curve growth. And this is a sigmoid curve which was which was discovered or promulgated by a guy in the management he was a management thinker called Charles Handy. And and it's used a lot today in the investing world, and I use this a lot. I will just kind of summarize it with a picture, which Deepa, if you can just hit the next slide. If you look at the history of the US stock markets in the last 23 years, and if you had, say, 25 stocks or 100 stocks in the universe of 8,000 stocks, what they found was only 25% of that 8,000 stocks, which is about 1,600 stock, actually gave a positive return and were responsible for all the gains made by anybody in that stock market. And only 6% of those stocks actually performed significantly. So if you can pick up that 6%, that is, pick up those mid-cap stocks, the 10 in your time, in these times, you should be able to go and just sit on it, and you will get much better returns than having 25 stocks and jumping around. Of course, you need to know how to pick those winners. You got to know when to invest in that S curve. Look at mid caps, look at whether it's a disruptor in an existing field or is creating a new field by itself. Look at founder-led companies, and look at companies which have a large addressable market, have recurring revenues, and have very high gross margins. If you look at some of these companies, I can assure you that you will be able to enjoy that power of compounding and enjoy that ride. And of course, you will have to deal with maybe a dozen sell-offs or a dozen market volatility situations. Now, if you can close your eyes to that, you will be able to definitely come and get at least 25% return year over year, and I can guarantee that. Now, I think I heard there were a couple of questions. If somebody could tell me what was the question that was picked up.
One for Hardeep, I guess. Hardeep, there is one where the question is, from Mr. Varadaraj Prabhu. Is our supply chain now okay as required? And also, is your own workforce? So I think it's expecting some responses about the supply chain and the workforce.
Yeah, the supply chain, and that's still not okay, because again, very unfortunate, because since we are in the steel making sector, we get our normal iron ore supplies from Koida and Barbil areas of Odisha. And when this lockdown actually occurred, that was the peak time when this road maintenance and all those things take place. And unfortunately, due to lockdown, all those maintenance and all those things got stuck up. And now the things are very bad. Number one, manpower is not there, drivers are not there. So that's the reason, vehicles, the number of vehicles are not there on the road. And second big problem which has occurred is the road conditions are very bad. And whatever vehicles which are flying on the road, they are finding it really very difficult because of the very pathetic road conditions, which could not be repaired during this February, March, April time. So that's this very difficult time right now for this sector.
Okay, so let's just wrap it up. I think
there are a couple of more questions. Rajesh, just take 2 more are there. So why not finish them? And
I think one of the questions probably, I think it was a comment around, please tell me about Atmanirbhar scheme for MSME sector. I mean, is there something specific that we missed out, Pradipta?
See, Atmanirbhar scheme, I think whatever is available in public domain is what we all know. And something to be, nothing very specific can be shared right now. And I guess the actual implementation will happen in a few, going forward, we'll have more structured information about how we need to go forward, right? And the clue is to, or my suggestion would be to go through the Champions website, or check out the DC MSME. If you still are not satisfied, go and meet the MSME Development Institute in your area. So every state has got this thing, and they might be able to guide you better.
Okay.
There is one more, Rajesh, there is one more question, which is what is the future of manufacturing industries? When can they expect to come back to normalcy?
So, Mr. Subrat, I will tell you.
Yeah, so
combining this Atmanirbhar concept and the future of manufacturing industry, I will tell you, it is a two-way trend. You can't be consider only one way, that we need support from government. Government cannot say that we need the entrepreneurs. So basically, we have to redefine the visions. We need the support from the premium technical institutes to collaborate with the nearby MSME industries in a particular state, offer viable technical and R&D support, institutes to work like an hub and a spoke model. So the role of institution is to understand the potential of the nearby geographies, advise local bodies and government accordingly. Point number 2 will be government must rejig the entrepreneur schemes, quality certification schemes, lean operational management, create benchmark for MSME. We should not see China, we should see the whole world. Point number 3, the business demand quality, productivity, innovation, and sharing of all knowledge in a common platform, skill-based programs, usage of technology, bring more digitalizations. Point number 4, hire smart people, avoid ignorance, choose the right team, implement a new way of looking into the things, bring sustainability. Point number 5, go global, cross local, and invest on yourself. I think I'm through.
Thank you, Sudhir. I think I want to wrap this up now. I think we are at around that time. There were a couple of questions around, what are some of the benefits or opportunities created by COVID, and where should I be looking at investing, right? So as I said, there are some places that you definitely need to avoid at this time, whether it's, for instance, the travel industry, whether it's non-discretionary entertainment items, entertainment on value, hospitality, etc. Because there are challenges out there. But at the same time, there are definitely a lot of opportunities also, because if you look at what's happened is that there's a lot of opportunities where there is a lot of remote healthcare, remote working, remote collaboration kind of businesses, which are actually getting a tailwind. Security companies are getting tailwinds. I'm talking about technology security companies. Virtual entertainment is getting a tailwind. A lot of, new products in the COVID era. As I told you, there was a startup which actually pivoted and created a product which actually helps in SOP maintenance and standardization of, SOP across factories and companies. So there are definitely areas in the healthcare, in your technology network extension, virtual collaboration, etc., where there's definitely some benefits. And I would, think that, you want to actually go and find those kind of opportunities. I mean, I could definitely tell you about a few companies in the US markets, which is where I actually work in. But I mean, if you really want on the Indian markets, I could definitely, touch base with you. You can, look me up in LinkedIn or Seeking Alpha, and I'll have my partner talk to you about that, in terms of some of the companies in the Indian markets. With that, I think, thank you very much, folks, everybody, in terms of, this webinar. Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, Subrat. Thank you, Pradipta. And thank you to the Huawei team and Hardeep. And I will, I think at this time, wrap up this thing. And there will be, participants will be redirected to a survey post-seminar. If you could actually kindly, give some feedback to the panelists as well as to Huawei on how we can improve this. Thank you. And
thank you, Deepa.
Thank you, Deepa. And thank you, the audience.
All the panel members. Thank you, audience.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you.
Thanks,
everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.